If you transmigrate into the male lead of a domineering CEO novel, what's your first reaction? Excitement at endless wealth and power? Or anticipation of beginning an unparalleled romance with a fated heroine? None of the above. When I died suddenly at work and opened my eyes to find I had become the domineering CEO who owns a multi-billion-dollar empire in a melodramatic novel, what I felt was not joy but shock. Recalling the original's fixed pattern of woman, you've successfully caught my attention, tormenting body and heart, running off pregnant, wife-chasing funeral pyre, and thinking of that heroine Sophia, who trips while walking, constantly causes trouble, and cries more readily than running water. My corporate slave soul completely exploded. How is this a once-in-a-lifetime romance? This is clearly a top-tier troublemaker, plus endless overtime. Thus was born the most unorthodox tyrant CEO in history. When the heroine once again accidentally smashed a European antique vase worth millions of dollars and waited with tearful eyes for me to deliver the classic line. I was cold as ice, my tone efficient like a humanoid AI. Name, Sophia Taylor. Failed to meet probationary performance standards. Caused significant property loss to the company. Now, go to the finance department to settle the bill. You've been fired. The world fell silent in an instant. My last consciousness was the dense code on the computer screen and that tearing, excruciating pain the moment before my heart stopped. Overtime, endless overtime. I had thought I would die suddenly in that less than 5 square meter rented room, my corpse rotting away with no one the wiser. However, when I opened my eyes again, there was no pungent smell of disinfectant, nor any judgment of heaven or hell. What met my eyes was a suffocatingly luxurious, gigantic office. The mirror-smooth ebony desk was large enough to sleep on, with only a computer and a landline phone on it. In the distance was a full wall of floor-to-ceiling glass, as if the whole city were under my feet. A sharp, woody scent hung in the air, like the smell of money and power settling down. Where am I? I rubbed my eyes instinctively. I sprang to my feet and staggered to the floor-to-ceiling window. A man's reflection was clearly visible on the glass. He looked over 1.85 meters tall, broad-shouldered with long legs, wrapped in a perfectly tailored Italian haute couture suit. A stern face, sharp features, a jawline taut as a blade, and a pair of black eyes so deep you couldn't see the bottom. The slightly pressed thin lips carried an indifference and arrogance of the whole world owes me money. Handsome, truly handsome. But this is not my Ethan Johnson. Just as I was stunned by that face, a torrent of complex memories was forcibly injected into my mind like a high-pressure water jet, hurting so much I almost dropped to my knees. Ethan, president of the Johnson Group, worth hundreds of billions of dollars, with a business empire spanning the globe, cold and ruthless in character, absolute and uncompromising. Also, a ridiculous domineering CEO fanfic called The Cold CEO's Contracted Sweet Wife. Not only did I die suddenly and transmigrate, I also became, within this thunderous, cheesy novel that female colleagues were forced to listen to while working overtime, the domineering CEO male-led. In the original, this Ethan is an utter, complete lunatic. He thinks, woman, you've successfully caught my attention just because the heroine Sophia knocked over a cup of coffee. He thinks, good, you're the first woman to dare to treat me like this, just because she dared to talk back to him. He forcibly keeps her by his side to physically and mentally torment her, meanwhile inserting white moon love, substitutes, misunderstandings, frame-ups, running off while pregnant, gut-wrenching betrayals, and finally ends with a wife-chasing cremation scene. And that heroine Sophia was the textbook definition of a dumb, sweet, plus trouble magnet, plus sanctimonious white lotus. She stumbled on flat ground. Her voice was always on the verge of tears, her IQ perpetually offline, good for nothing but being kind and causing trouble. Yet every man loved her to death. I felt my temples throbbing, my stomach churning. More despairing than working 72 hours straight. I'd rather go back and face that damn pile of code. I'd rather go back to living in my rented room. I'd rather die suddenly. Be a domineering CEO? What a ridiculous joke. This isn't transmigrating into a domineering CEO. This is clearly starting straight in hell. Domineering CEO? Not even worthy of a dog. Of course, the above is all a joke. Domineering CEO? Bang! The dog, not me, takes the fall, sitting back in that ergonomic boss chair, whose value is probably higher than my entire previous year's salary. Try to digest this horrifying fact. If memory serves, today is the pivotal point where the original plot begins. Knock, knock, knock. The office door was gently tapped. A respectful yet slightly nervous voice came from outside. Mr. Johnson. Now Ethan. I took a deep breath, forcing the original owner's ice-cold tone, and squeezed out one word through my teeth. Speak. The Secretary Davis outside seemed to tremble, his voice even lower. Intern Sophia, in the downstairs lobby, accidentally knocked over that European antique vase you just bought back from the auction. Me. Very good. The plot master was late, but arrived nonetheless. That vase, as remembered, was worth $12 million. In the original storyline, it was the key prop Ethan used to make things difficult for Sophia, thus triggering the ill-fated contract lover entanglement. According to the script, I should now go downstairs immediately, lock eyes with that panicking little woman with my 30% coldness, 70% sarcasm, look, and then say that classic line, woman, what will you use to compensate? How about using yourself to pay the debt? Just thinking about that scene gives me goosebumps all over. Compensate my ass. Pay the debt? As if. Why should I, a modernly educated corporate drone who worships efficiency and hates all trouble, play along with this idiotic charade? A $14 million trophy placed in a lobby with people coming and going? This company's management is already a mess. Fire them. She must be fired. Are we going to keep this security risk through the new year? No, wait. The core issue isn't the vase. It's that woman named Sophia herself. She is the root of all the trouble. She is the center of this melodramatic vortex. As long as I avoid her, as long as I cut off ties with her at the source, this damn plot can't trap me. A thought, crystal clear and flashing with the light of survival, split through the chaotic melodrama and memories of the domineering CEO in my head like lightning. Fire her before she really attracts attention, before she even starts to run away. Just fire her, and it once and for all. This world doesn't need a naive, sweet heroine, and I don't need any wife-chasing redemption arcs. All I want is peace and quiet. All I want is efficiency. All I want is to stay far away from idiots. She suddenly stood up from the chair, the low-pressure aura radiating from her even colder and more bone-chilling than the original, as if she wasn't going to begin an ill-fated romance, but to carry out the death sentence on a disaster. She opened the office door and, facing Secretary Davis outside, who was so frightened he was nearly curling into a ball, expressionless, spat out two words. Lead the way. A hellish beginning? I will personally tear this hellish script to shreds. I strode forward, my dress shoes striking the polished marble floor, producing cold, rhythmic clacks like the beating of war drums. The closer I got to the first floor lobby, the louder the din became. I could still faintly hear a woman sobbing and sniffling. I frowned even more tightly. Here it comes, the classic BGM of the heroine cries. I stepped into the hall in one stride. As expected, the scene was true to its reputation. A complete mess on the floor. A European antique vase worth millions of dollars lay shattered, fragments splintered everywhere. In the middle of the debris stood a petite figure in an intern's suit, head bowed, shoulders heaving with sobs, tears falling like beads on a broken string, evoking pity, one might think. Yeah, right? To me, this was simply a sign of inefficiency at work and a complete lack of risk awareness. A circle of employees had already formed around her, whispering to one another, faces a mix of schadenfreude, sympathy, and glee. The security guard stood to one side, helpless, clearly afraid to touch this special person who might soon be flying to the treetops. When the CEO personally arrived, the crowd instantly fell silent, automatically parting to make way, all eyes focused on me, expecting my next move. Sophia also looked up, tearful, gazing at me with those big eyes filled with panic, helplessness, and a hint of anticipation. She sniffed, her voice thick with sobs, as she spoke, her lines delivered with a practiced tenderness that was almost painful. Ethan, Mr. Ethan, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to. Her voice trembled as if she had suffered a great injustice. I was in such a hurry to deliver documents to the project office that I didn't watch where I was going. I know this vase is expensive. I can't afford to pay for it, but I can work to repay the debt. I can do anything. Here we go. Standard procedure. Can't pay. Do anything. And then it's use yourself to settle the debt. The crowd around held their breath, exchanging looks. It's happening. It's happening. The classic storyline is about to unfold. Mr. Johnson will surely be drawn to her stubborn, yet fragile appearance. However, I only gave a cold glance at the shards on the floor, my eyes not lingering on Sophia's face for even a second. I lifted my hand, pointed at the shards on the floor, my voice steady as an AI, without a hint of emotion. Did the company's cleaning department all take the day off today? Everyone froze, including Sophia. Davis's secretary jolted, immediately responding, "And no, Mr. Johnson, I'll have someone come clean right away. Restore it to its original state within 3 minutes." I ordered. Yes. Secretary Davis hurriedly picked up the walkie-talkie. Having dealt with the scene, my gaze finally fell back on Sophia, who stood frozen in place. That gaze had no warmth at all, as if appraising a piece of scrap property. "Sophia," I spoke. My voice was low but carried clearly across the silent lobby. It's me, Mr. Johnson." Sophia stood up straight, subconsciously, chilled all over by my gaze. 3rd week of the probation period. Tardy records, 5 times. Average lateness, 15 minutes. I began reciting the numbers, my pace unhurried, but each word like a knife. Work errors, spilled coffee 3 times, drenched the marketing director, delivered the wrong file 7 times, causing meeting delays. Printing mistakes are too numerous to count. Sophia's face gradually drained of color. The looks from the surrounding employees began to change, shifting from spectatorship to surprise and reflection. Yeah, putting aside her pitiful appearance, these work mistakes are real and substantial. Now, my gaze swept over the shards on the floor and finally fixed on Sophia's face. "You damaged a company asset of $12 million. Preliminary assessment indicates it was caused by personal recklessness and a lack of basic safety awareness and professional conduct." I paused slightly. The whole lobby fell silent enough to hear a pin drop. Based on the above facts, my voice suddenly turned cold and piercing. "I believe you're completely unfit for an internship at Johnson Group and have caused serious negative impacts on the company's property and operational order." Sophia stared in terror, her eyes wide, her lips beginning to tremble, seized by a strong sense of foreboding. "No, it shouldn't be like this. He should." I gave her no time to think and issued the final verdict. "Secretary Davis, take her to finance to settle her salary for this month. According to the internship contract, she is dismissed for gross negligence and is not entitled to compensation. After the departure formalities are completed, have her leave immediately." He didn't even bother to say "you're fired" to Sophia again, as if saying another word to her would be a waste of company resources. "Mr. Johnson," Sophia finally came to her senses and let out an incredulous shriek, tears welling up again. "You can't fire me. It was just an accident. I've already apologized. I can make it right. How can you be so cold and heartless?" Cold, heartless. I sounded as if I had heard a joke, a faintly mocking curve appearing at the corner of my mouth. When that expression showed on the face of a domineering CEO, its impact doubled. Johnson Group's annual revenue is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. It's not a charity, and it's certainly not a place for you to play oops I did at games. Your accident cost the company $120 million. Will your sorry restore the vase? I. Sophia was silenced by the retort, able only to cry. As for compensation, I glanced her up and down, my look contemptuous. Compensate with what? Your salary for the next 100 years? Spare me. That seemingly profound line came out of my mouth in an extremely practical and humiliating way, and the effect was superb. Sophia was completely petrified on the spot, the color draining from her face. Security. I stopped looking at her, as if she were nothing but air. Supervise her while she packs her things. 10 minutes. Have her leave the company building. From now on, I don't want to see her anywhere at Johnson. The order was given, clear, cold, without any room for negotiation. 2 security guards immediately stepped forward. Though their manner remained somewhat polite, their actions left no doubt. Miss Taylor, please. Sophia seemed to have all her strength drained. She went limp on the floor and was half supported, half escorted to her feet by the guards. Amidst a dead silence and countless shocked, pitying, and schadenfreude-filled gazes, she was dragged in a disgraceful state toward the elevator. She didn't come to her senses until she was shoved into the elevator, her eyes vacant, as if her entire worldview had been utterly shattered and rebuilt. What happened to the expected woman? You're interesting? What about the promised? Use yourself to pay the debt. How did everything change? Davis's secretary worked with high efficiency, already directing the cleaners to quickly clear the scene while quietly urging the HR department to process Sophia's resignation immediately. I glanced expressionlessly at the lobby, which had quickly returned to order, as if the previous farce had never happened. I adjusted my suit cuff, turned, and under the awed gazes of all the staff, walked toward the private elevator with the same measured stride as when I arrived. The moment the elevator doors closed, all the noise was cut off. The world. Peace and quiet. I leaned against the elevator's smooth metal wall and let out a long, satisfying breath of the stale air I'd been holding in for ages. This is what efficient work looks like. Deal with the source of the trouble. Start by firing the heroine. Melodramatic plot? Don't even think about it. The first day after firing Sophia, I woke up in a state of extreme, almost unreal comfort. No alarm clock, no calls from the landlord about rent, and no endless lines of code in my dreams. Only soft sunlight leaking through the seams of top-tier blackout curtains, and a luxurious bed beneath me that sank a person completely into it. Get up slowly, wash in a bathroom big enough to host a 20-person party. Look at that devastatingly handsome yet expressionless face in the mirror and try to force a smile. The result is a bit terrifying. Better keep the expressionless face, less effort. Breakfast is prepared and plated personally by a Michelin chef, so exquisite it looks like a work of art. I eat with relish while internally ranting. Back then, a day's food money probably wouldn't even cover one of the caviar on this salad. Got into the chauffeured car to go to the office. The driver was professionally silent, and the interior was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. No subway crowds or sweat smells. No road rage from traffic jams. Is this the pleasure of the wealthy? Plain, unadorned, and rather dull. Smells good. Arriving at the company, the atmosphere was noticeably different. When all the employees saw me, their lips were no longer those mixed with fear and gossipy curiosity. They had become pure, unfeigned awe. Hurrying footsteps, greetings delivered with utmost respect, productivity visibly improved. After all, the CEO had no hesitation in dismissing even the troublemaker who might become the CEO's wife. So how could he be lenient with ordinary employees like them? Mr. Johnson, these are the documents for your review. Secretary Davis brought in the papers, moving with extra caution. Beyond the professional respect in her eyes, there was a hint of curiosity. She still couldn't figure out what exactly Sophia had done to provoke such a clean, decisive outcome. I picked up the documents and skimmed them quickly. Thanks to the original owner's business talent and my own logical thinking as a programmer, handling these matters wasn't difficult. I even found a loophole in the original owner's contract that they might have missed, circled it with a red pen, and tersely annotated. Clause is ambiguous. Legal department to review again. Give me a reply by 3 p.m. Davis's secretary took the document, saw the note. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes, then turned into deeper admiration. Yes, Mr. Johnson. All morning, no coffee spilled, no sobbing apologies, no inexplicable misdelivered documents. The efficiency was astonishing. Enjoying this feeling of having control over everything. I even took a moment to check Johnson Group stock. The trend is steady. Just as expected. Firing the female lead not only didn't cause any negative impact, maybe it even removed a potential destabilizing factor. During my lunch break, while I was deciding whether to eat at the Rooftop Sky restaurant or have the chef prepare another 5-star takeaway, the first plot character showed up. The person who came was Lucas, the gentle second male lead from the original book, Sophia's senior, and also the heir of the Walker Group, one of Ethan's business rivals. Lucas looked refined and gentle, but at this moment his face carried a suppressed anger and worry. He pushed open the door to my office directly. Clearly, the original owner had given him considerable authority. No, is the original owner crazy? Your rival can just push open the door to your office. Ethan, Lucas spoke, his tone reproachful. Was it you who did something about Sophia? How did you treat her like that? She's just an innocent girl who accidentally broke a vase. Do you have to be so heartless and fire her outright? Her eyes are swollen from crying. I looked up from the files, my gaze calm and untroubled as if I were looking at a stranger throwing a tantrum. Mr. Walker, I said, my voice cold. First, you should knock before entering my office. That's basic etiquette. Second, this is Johnson Group. How I handle my employees doesn't seem to require reporting to Walker Group. Lucas was stumped by my retort, his face even uglier. You know that's not what I meant. I'm standing up for Sophia. You're too cold-blooded. Cold-blooded? I set down my pen, leaned back slightly, striking a negotiating pose. Mr. Walker, if I'm not mistaken, that European antique vase is valued on the market at $12 million. Tell me, if an intern at your company made the same careless mistake and caused Walker Group a loss of $12 million, what would you do? Give her a hug and comfort her with it's okay? Lucas, moreover, I pressed the advantage, my tone taking on a touch of mockery. During Sophia's internship, she was chronically late and left early, made frequent errors at work, and failed to improve despite repeated instruction. All of this is thoroughly documented. Firing an unqualified employee to prevent greater losses to the company is a manager's most basic judgment and duty. Does Mr. Walker run a company on compassion rather than rules and regulations? Every line hit the mark, thoroughly crushing Lucas's emotional card with business logic. Lucas's face flushed red and then pale. He found he couldn't refute any of it. From a reasoning standpoint, Ethan was not wrong at all. Indeed, he was utterly right. Anything else? I dismissed them. If not, I need to get back to work. Also, tell Mr. Walker this. That Southern City project your company tried to poach last quarter seems to have run into a bit of tax trouble. I suggest you go home and sort out your own affairs first. Lucas's pupils contracted. He stared at me in shock. They had gone to great lengths to hide the problems with that project. How could this man possibly know? And he knew so clearly. He broke out in a cold sweat instantly, no longer able to argue Sophia's case. He threw out a blustery, inwardly timid, "You, take care of yourself," and hurriedly left, his retreating figure even somewhat disheveled. I snorted softly. The original owner's memories and the omniscient perspective are really handy. When you shoot down someone, you hit the sore spot every time. Not long after Lucas left, the second plot character made an entrance. The newcomer was Olivia Martinez, the vicious female antagonist from the original book, the Martinez family's heiress who had long adored Ethan and was also one of Sophia's main tormentors. She was dressed exceptionally dazzling today, sashaying in with a sway of her hips, her face showing just the right amount of concern and a hint of glee. "Ethan," her voice was sickeningly sweet. "I heard you fire that Sophia. That's wonderful. I've disliked her for a long time. Clumsy, playing the innocent white lotus, always pretending to be pitiful to get sympathy. She leaned over the desk, her body tilting forward, revealing a lovely curve, full of implication. Ethan, did you do this because she made you angry? Or because of me? She thought I fired Sophia to get back at her, or to clear away the other sparrows and swallows so that Olivia could take her place. I slid my chair back without expression, putting some distance between us. Miss Martinez, I said businesslike, not even bothering to look up at her. First, this is a company. Please call me Mr. Johnson. Second, I fired Sophia solely because she was incapable of doing the job and caused significant losses to the company. This was purely a corporate personnel decision, nothing to do with anyone else, and certainly nothing to do with you. I paused, then delivered the knockout line. Don't read too much into it. Olivia's coquettish smile froze instantly, as if she'd been slapped hard, burning with pain. Ethan, Mr. Johnson, anything else? I picked up the documents again, signaling the end of the conversation. Olivia's face went deathly pale. Her nails dug almost into her palms. Looking at the man in front of her, cold and hard as iron, she felt for the first time a real, hopeless chill. This man seemed truly different from before. Not because of anyone in particular, just indifferent. She ultimately said nothing, bit her lip, and slunk away. The office finally fell completely silent. I set down the document I hadn't really read and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. After sending the second male lead and the supporting female off, the world seemed a bit quieter. I realized that as long as my attitude was firm enough and my logic clear enough, the characters from the original plot couldn't force me back into that melodramatic whirlpool. This feeling wasn't bad, enjoying this rare moment of peace. However, in the subconscious, some corner faintly felt that things might not end so easily. Would that powerful original plot really be willing to lay down its flag and cease its campaign just like that? A barely perceptible undercurrent seemed to continue stirring quietly in unseen places. After enjoying a few days of calm following the storm, I almost began to think that that melodramatic novel had grown bored of itself and quietly logged off. I handled work efficiently, indulged in top-tier cuisine, and even started studying Johnson Group's core technology division, pondering whether I could use my programming knowledge from my previous life to create some innovations. Even a domineering CEO should be a tech-savvy domineering CEO. However, the gears of fate, or rather the author of that damn book, didn't seem willing to let me off so easily. That afternoon, just after finishing a multinational video conference, the internal line from Davis's secretary rang, her voice tinged with embarrassment. Mr. Johnson, Miss Taylor is downstairs. She said she wants to see you. My brow tightened instantly. A lingering ghost? Do not see her. I said decisively. Have her leave. We told her, but she said she wouldn't leave unless she could see you, and she's already attracted some staff to gather. Davis's secretary's voice dropped lower. I felt a surge of irritation. Is this the stubbornness of melodrama? Like chewing gum stuck to your shoe, you just can't shake it off. I walked to the window and looked down. I couldn't make out anything clearly. The people below looked like little black dots to me. According to Davis's secretary, Sophia was standing alone in the plaza outside the company gate, looking up at the top of the building, tears still seemingly on her face. What a pure white lotus swaying in the wind. A martyrdom plot? I picked up the internal phone and called security. There are people illegally gathered at the entrance, disrupting normal company order. You have 2 minutes to clear the area. Yes, Mr. Johnson. Downstairs, 2 security guards received orders and immediately stepped forward, firmly asking Sophia to leave. Sophia suddenly became agitated, struggling and shouting toward the building at the top of her lungs. Mr. Johnson, I know I was wrong. Please give me a chance. I just want to apologize to you in person. I'm begging you. Her voice didn't actually reach my ears from up here, but her demeanor was irritating enough. I watched expressionlessly as the guards finally, half by force, led the crying, screaming Sophia off the plaza and shoved her into a taxi. The world was quiet again. but that bit of annoyance in my heart would not go away. I hate the feeling of being entangled, and I hate even more when things slip out of my control. As expected, Sophia's apology was only the appetizer. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was grim, carrying the ruthless edge of a desperado. "Ethan, right? Your woman is with me now." "Me? Here we go." A classic scene from the original book, The Kidnapping. Although the time, place, and people seemed to have shifted subtly because of my intervention, the core events stubbornly resurfaced. On the other end of the line came Sophia's terrified sobs. "Mr. Johnson, save me. Boo-hoo, they're so mean." The kidnapper's vicious voice rang out again. "Listen, if you want to earn one piece, prepare $500 million in cash. Old bills, not sequential. Tonight at midnight. Put it in the third trash can at the abandoned factory in the western suburbs. Don't call the police. Otherwise, you can wait to collect her body." In the original plot, I should have been distraught, saying, "What does her death have to do with me?" while my body honestly scrambled to gather cash, went alone to the rendezvous, then fought a fierce battle, got wounded and scarred, and eventually rescued the beauty, with our feelings rapidly heating up. However, now I held the phone with no emotion inside, even feeling a little amused. Spoke calmly, the tone as flat as discussing the weather forecast. "Oh, and then, kidnapper." Sophia's sobbing also paused for a moment. $500 million in old, non-sequential bills. Do you know how heavy $500 million in cash is? Putting it in the trash can. Then you'd better get a trash can big enough. The kidnappers obviously didn't expect that reaction. They hesitated for 2 seconds before roaring, "What are you babbling about? Bring the money to ransom the hostage, or I'll kill them." Ripping up the ransom note, I snorted. "Do me a favor and be a little more professional. First, she's not my woman. I had security throw her out just yesterday. The whole company knows. Second, $500 million? Do you think she's worth $500 million? I'd even think $5 is too much. Third, didn't you do a background check before you kidnapped her? Kidnapping and in turn I fired who has zero value to threaten me? Are you idiots? Or do you think I'm an idiot?" The kidnapper on the other end of the line was completely stunned. In the background, another kidnapper could be heard murmuring, "Boss, he actually kind of has a point." Sophia's despairing sobs rang out again. "Mr. Johnson, how could you do this? Boo-hoo, please save me." The leader of the kidnappers seemed both angry and humiliated. "Cut the crap. Ethan, don't try any tricks. I don't care what your relationship is with her. She's in my hands. If you don't pay up, I'll..." "What about you?" I cut him off, my tone even tinged with curiosity. "Kill her? Go ahead. Would be a nice cleanup for society. But let me remind you, murder is a serious crime. Throwing your whole life away for an unworthy target. Is that worth it? Kidnappers, have they somehow been persuaded?" I struck while the iron was hot and started feeding them the opposite line. "You guys seem capable, just not very bright. How about this? You release her and come interview with me for a security position. Johnson Group is short on daring and decisive talent like you. 5 social insurances and a housing fund. Competitive pay. Much more promising than kidnapping. Give it a thought." Dead silence on the other end of the phone. Only the kidnapper's heavy breathing and Sophia's bewildered sobs could be heard. After a full 30 seconds, the kidnapper leader finally seemed to process the absurd conversation and let out, "What a psycho." Then, with a click, the call was slammed shut. I held the line that now only had a busy signal and shrugged. Such poor nerves. She put down the phone, thought for a moment, then picked up the internal line and called her assistant. Check the origin and approximate location of that number just now. Also, anonymously report it to the police as suspected fraud and illegal detention and provide the leads. I'm not going to rescue anyone. I'm just a law-abiding good citizen, and I'll incidentally make life harder for those presumptuous kidnappers and troublemakers. After doing all that, I cheerfully went back to reading the documents. About 2 hours later, Davis's secretary came in to report, looking a bit odd. "Mr. Johnson, The police just responded that in a rented room in the western suburbs, they found several people suspected of being the kidnappers and a girl. Reportedly at the time, those kidnappers were earnestly trying to persuade the girl to cheer up, find work at a factory, stop fantasizing that some domineering CEO would come to save her. And then they were all caught in one sweep. Me, the power of a plot is indeed strong. Even when it's twisted, it can still be made to make sense. Understood. I nodded expressionlessly. That evening, a financial news bulletin interrupted with a breaking report. The police had foiled a clumsy attempted kidnapping and, by following the clues, smashed a small criminal gang that had long been operating in the western suburbs. According to reports, the operation was aided by precise information provided by a concerned citizen who wished to remain anonymous. I turned off the TV and poured myself a glass of red wine. So, not only did I easily defuse the kidnapping plot without spending a penny or getting hurt, but I also indirectly removed a menace from society. It might even have invisibly improved Johnson Group's public image a bit. This move, perfect score. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the myriad lights of the city. The so-called plot backlash seemed to be nothing more than that. As long as you stay absolutely clear-headed and play against expectations, even the strongest plot momentum can be forcibly bent. Yet a subtle intuition told me that although this kidnapping was resolved absurdly, its very occurrence meant that that damned book hadn't completely given up. There may still be undercurrents, only they've shifted into a more concealed, perhaps more absurd form. But me? I'll just take the move. After this round, I was completely certain of one thing. As long as your heart is ruthless enough and your maneuvers flashy enough, that lousy book's plot can't touch me. The so-called counterattack ended up a ridiculous footnote, reduced to company gossip for employees between bites. Did you hear that the fired intern actually staged her own kidnapping to try to force the CEO's hand? But the CEO saw through it mercilessly and even gave the kidnapper a silver bracelet? Sophia's name had completely become a joke and a cautionary tale at Johnson Group, with no possibility of recovery. The world was truly peaceful. I had completely adapted to the identity of Ethan. No longer the trembling trans-migrant afraid of taking a wrong step and triggering the plot. I had truly begun to enjoy and take control of it all. I still maintained an efficient, cold work style, but occasionally made decisions that differed from the original owners. For example, I increased the tech department's budget and salaries and pushed several cutting-edge tech investments that the original owner had been skeptical of, but which had broad prospects. The company's veterans were initially uneasy, but after seeing concrete performance reports and a slight rise in the stock price, they all shut up. In my spare time, using the technical foundation from my previous life, I offered a few key vulnerability fix suggestions on the company's tech forum, which left the technical director chilled with fear, then thoroughly impressed. He organized people overnight to deploy patches. Mr. Johnson has been kind of different lately. Privately, some executives would occasionally whisper, more terrifying, but also more impressive. I just laughed it off. Being a domineering CEO, every now and then you have to pull off some tech geek romance. That day, I was invited to attend a high-tech industry summit. In situations like this, the original protagonist would usually be there to show off strength and curry favor, but I was genuinely interested in several of the topics. After the summit came the banquet. I held a glass of champagne, doing my best to avoid small talk, standing alone in a relatively quiet corner of the terrace, watching the city's night view and reflecting on a new idea about artificial intelligence I had just heard. Mr. Johnson, a clear, crisp female voice sounded beside me, interrupting my thoughts. I turned my head. A woman stood before me, about 27 or 28, wearing a well-tailored ash-gray skirt suit, not an evening gown, looking capable and professional. Her makeup was refined but not heavy, her eyes bright and composed, and she too held a glass of wine with an air of poise. I searched my memory and couldn't find any matching information. She wasn't someone the original owner knew. Who are you? I kept my usual cold tone. I'm the head of Star Tech, Chloe Bennett. The woman smiled faintly and handed over a business card. At the summit just now, The question you raised about the boundaries of AI data security was very sharp and left a deep impression on me. StarTech? I have a faint impression of them, a rising company over the past 2 years focusing on enterprise-level security solutions, growing rapidly and known for an efficient, hardcore style. I didn't expect the person in charge to be so young, and a woman at that. I took the business card and glanced at it. The design was simple and the texture excellent. Miss Bennett. I nodded as a response. Internally, I was a bit surprised. The original's domineering cold monarch CEO vibe. Could someone actually consider his question sharp rather than nitpicking? Johnson Group's strength in traditional fields is beyond doubt, Chloe Bennett said evenly, carrying the polite distance typical of business settings without making one feel cut off. I didn't expect Mr. Johnson to have such deep insight and vigilance toward emerging tech as well. Just basic risk control, I replied lightly, though inwardly I felt a flicker of admiration for this woman's directness and acuity. At the very least, she didn't, like the others, only know how to flatter how powerful Johnson Group is. The two of us exchanged a few brief words about the summit's topics. This Chloe Bennett was clear in logic, original in perspective, and in no way inferior to any entrepreneur present. Indeed, she was even more pragmatic. No sappy tears, no feigned naive admiration, and no cautious fawning. Only equal, competence-based conversations between adults within their professional field. This made me, who is used to dealing with melodrama and trouble, feel a long-missing, normal sense of ease. StarTech has made some new progress in IoT security recently. There may be a possibility of cooperation in the future. At the end of the conversation, Chloe Bennett timely tossed out an olive branch, but her tone wasn't urgent, more like leaving the option open. Okay, have your project, lead contact Secretary Davis to schedule a time. I replied formally, without directly refusing. Working with smart people is always better than dealing with troublemakers. All right, I won't keep Mr. Johnson any longer then. Chloe Bennett smiled slightly, excused herself with proper manners, and left. No extra words, no lingering. I watched her walk away and swirled the wine glass in my hand. StarTech, Chloe Bennett. Interesting. After the banquet, sitting in the car on the way back, watching the city's glittering nightscape slip by outside the window. Sophia probably really did end up with that gentle second male lead, Lucas, she got by crying. It said the Walker family even snatched an insignificant project from Johnson Group for her, as if to sulk. I had my men step aside. I couldn't be bothered to fight. That little prophet, fighting over it would only bring bigger trouble. Olivia also seemed to quiet down. I heard her family sent her abroad to clear her head. All the melodramatic threads seemed, because of my dismissal, to branch off into paths that had nothing to do with me. This world finally stopped revolving around a naive, sugary female lead and returned to the face it was meant to have. And I, standing at the top of this world with endless wealth and power, felt for the first time true freedom. I could choose to pursue a career or choose to enjoy life. I could be cold and ruthless or occasionally take an interest in an intriguing technical idea. You can refuse all unwanted troubles, and you can also occasionally look forward to the normal kind of story that might happen between intelligent people. The car glided smoothly into the Johnson family estate. I stepped out and took a deep breath of the cool night air. The corporate drone I used to be, Ethan, is dead. Now I am Ethan, a domineering CEO who tore up the melodramatic script and wrote his own rules. What will the chapters ahead be like? I don't know, and I'm too lazy to preset them. But at least the beginning was perfect,